Chris Chiang, from Malaysia. As a kid, how do I start into martial art? I have always been interested in martial arts since like Bruce Lee time. Watching Bruce Lee's movie, it really inspired me. And then I did Aikido when I was in high school. That's where I start to know Brandon. Brandon is one of our founder for Malaysia Kyudo. So I did a few years in Aikido. I reached the rank of first Kyu. I did not proceed further. And professionally, I am in the IT line, but I work for this logistic company. Yeah. And that's pretty much about me. And also for Kyudo, I have started about since 2013. It's almost 8 years, 7 to 8 years now, really.
So talk a bit about that beginning. You were doing Aikido. There was no Kyudo in Malaysia before. How did eventually it start? How did you join? How did you hear about it? And then what was that first few years like?
Okay, so Aikido, Judo, Karate has been around for many years. And some of these arts, like for example, Jukendo, we have quite recent, and of course Kyudo that time during the late 90s, there's no Kyudo. Even the early 20s, early 2000s, there's no Kyudo. So actually how we get into this one is Brandon. Yeah, again, Brandon, I need to highlight his name. He started with Kendo, and he also bring back the Iaido into Malaysia, because the time Iaido was not so popular. So he bring it back alive. He basically kickstart it. And along his training, he found that he need to also train Kyudo with the recommendation from his sensei. And that's where he started to look up. He bought some books, videos, and try to learn by all by himself. There is no sensei that time. So eventually, he started to also contact the International Kyudo Federation in Japan. And he was inquiring if anyone can teach him Kyudo. But unfortunately, there is no sensei here. So, but the IKYF actually recommend him to travel to France, where he was also working in Dubai. So Dubai to France is quite near, not that far compared to where we have. So France, at that time, there's a seminar, international seminar. So he traveled there, and he started to practice. But what is very interesting is that what he have learned from the books and videos, in actual practice is all wrong. And of course, he got many corrections from there, and that's where he started. And a few, I think one or 2 years later, he came back to Malaysia. I think 1 year about that. So we have this. He started off with this Facebook group. Yeah, it's called the Malaysia Kyudo Network. That eventually we managed to gather interest. We connect with people from international and also local. There are some who have been trained in Japan, some students exchange program. They came back to Malaysia. They try to find Kyudo, but they can't find, right? So usually what is the best way is Google, right? You Google search Kyudo, and you found, oh, there's a Malaysia Kyudo network. So he started to connect with people from international and locally. And there's one guy from Hungary. I need to point out his name is Robert Rusty. He is he actually recommend a person that he know, expatriate who is working in Malaysia, a Japanese name called Tomosugu Goka. So Goka-san, during that time, actually he's now a sensei. So actually maybe I should call him Goka Sensei. So Goka Sensei, during that time, he was working in the oil industry in Malaysia. Malaysia is rich for oil anyway. So he was training by himself, and he said, Robert was recommending why not you contact Goka, and Goka will be able to direct Brandon, give him some basic class. So eventually they both met, and Goka agreed to teach. Yeah, that was in late 2013. Somewhere in November, we have the very first class that time, and Brandon posted on Facebook. I saw a very cool video of Goka Sensei during doing the Hasetsu, and that is a very specific. Have you seen maybe Kyujutsu before? Kyujutsu where they shoot with the kneeling stance. So I saw that. Then immediately I told Brandon, hey, I need to learn this. This is very cool. I have always been admiring this traditional Japanese art. Of course, I love modern art, like the do, that is jutsu, and the do is a separate thing, right? So I saw that, and I decided to join during my birthday, on the December 15th. So I tried out the first class with Goka Sensei and Brandon. That time, 3 of us, and there's also Kenny. Kenny, that time he's still studying, so he just joined one class and he left. But of course, he joined back after a few years. So we start very humbly, really, about 3 of us. And soon, during the time of we try to find an instructor, there is also another guy in Penang. Penang is a state in the northern part of Malaysia. So we are in Kuala Lumpur. We are in the capital. So this guy called Lim Ing Chuan, he too emailed to International Kyudo Federation asking for if there's any sensei around in Malaysia. And the IKYF direct him to Brandon because Brandon is the first contact. So eventually, Lim also practiced on his own. He buy books and videos. Without a sensei, it's actually very difficult to start something. And also we can have like 100 people interested in this art, but it takes one person, a founder, to actually kickstart everything. And Brandon is perfect for that because he is professionally, he is in the marketing. Yeah, he specialized in marketing, so he knows how to sell. So and under his leadership, it was quite fun because he will think of a lot of gathering, all this stuff. So we also have a quarter gathering. Every 3 months, we try to link up with the Penang group. So we have a joint practice. I actually have a picture. I'm not sure if now is the best time to show some pictures.
Sure, go ahead.
All right. Let me share.
So that's pretty cool. Screen. Like you have Brendan, who's from Malaysia, working in Dubai, went to France for his first introduction. Then someone from Hungary recommended someone from Japan that was living in Malaysia. That's like crazy international connections.
Yes. Okay, this is our very first group photo. It's only 4 of us. The lady here is Aisha. She no longer joined us, but here is our very first group photo. Then we actually practice in the squash court. As you can see in the background, this is actually a squash court.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we move into a tennis court. That is where Brandon stays. We utilize, and it's just nice because it's 28 meter. But of course, we can't do much and we can't accommodate more people.
So what do you have on the other side? Do you have like a net setup?
Yes, we do have a net setup, but I did not prepare the picture. We have this green net to cover because we are beginners, so most of the time we will miss. But of course, Goka Sensei, that time he has about 9 years of Kyudo experience. Later I will come back to Goka Sensei. Yeah. So we practice in here, the tennis court, and then we move to what we have is a football field. And this is just perfect. We don't need a net, as you can see.
Everything is Everything is outdoors.
Everything is outdoor, correct.
Weather exactly. Is pretty good in that part of Malaysia. You don't get rain or snow.
But of course, we have monsoon season. So sometimes during the monsoon season, it rains every day, and we can't sure we have to wait until the rain stops. and we only can resume after that. But it's also very interesting because after the rain, there are puddles of water, and the arrow hits the ground. It's like fish jumping out from the water. No? So yeah, I talk about we Brandon organized some quarter events. This is actually our very first gathering in Penang. Yeah.
Nice.
Our very first gathering in Penang. Penang have an archery field that time. They share with some modern recurve and national archers as well. So this is where we have our gathering. Then after that, we have another gathering in Kuala Lumpur, and then we have another gathering back to Penang. That is the third time we have a Malaysia Kyudo gathering. So after the third one, we try to have the fourth. We try to have the fourth Kyudo gathering. So what happens is that this is actually the history of Southeast Asia Kyudo gathering that we have. I think you heard from my other friends like Go from Singapore about Southeast Asia Kyudo. So actually this is how we started. So every quarter we have a gathering, Penang, KL, Penang, and finally the fourth one we planned for KL actually. And Brandon, being a marketing guy, he's trying to he actually sent an invite to the whole world. We have also a Kyudo group where the whole world is. Yeah, everyone will gather in the Kyudo Facebook group to discuss. And he actually said, "Hey, we have a Kyudo gathering." So I said, "Hey, Brandon, we are inviting the whole world. Can we actually manage that?" He said, "Don't worry, we will eventually make it." Because actually during our third gathering in Penang, we have some interest from Singapore, Kodama-san, and Jeremy. Yeah, Jeremy is two of them. Who Jeremy, of course, he's a beginner, just like us, who is someone who's trying to find a sensei teaching in Singapore, and then he can't find because there's no group there, right? You search Kyudo Singapore, there's no group, and Kodama-san found us, and we basically try to connect both of them. They said, "Hey, why not both of you also start your own club, so you can have a Singapore Kyudo." That's actually how they started. So I would say coincidentally, we also started at the same time, and they also looking for Kyudo, and which we somehow connect in a way. And as the third Kyudo gathering happens, we have more interest from people from Singapore. And the fourth one, eventually, when Brandon sent the invite to the whole world, we got some response as well. Vietnam was interested. Vietnam have a Kyudo club there. They have long established. So they sent in a big team.
Wow.
So this is our group photo for the first Southeast Asia Kyudo gathering. And we have also from Japan, both of this gentleman and this lady is from Tsukuba University.
Oh, that's Andrea.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
I remember you interviewed her before.
Yeah,
yes,
that's cool. Wow.
Yeah. And Kodama-san and Jeremy at the back. And the front, all this one, they are from Vietnam.
Yeah.
So that is how we started Southeast Asia Kyudo. This is the very first in Malaysia.
And what is this location? Where are you?
This is in Kuala Lumpur, actually.
Is this just a field outside? Like, is it meant for
actually
something?
Archery. Oh, yeah, you can see here. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Just now I mentioned that we have moved to a few places. Kyudo is actually very challenging because to find the correct place is very difficult. We started with a squash court, then after that to the tennis room, and then after that to a football field, and eventually we found a very nice archery range. This is our archery range. But of course, you can't fit in too many targets here. But later on, they kicked us out because they reserved that place for the national archers. So again, we back to the football field, and eventually we found a badminton hall. It's a very nice indoor hall where we can fit in more people. Then after the first Southeast Asia Kyudo gathering, we have this is also one of the photo from the first Kyudo gathering.
Wow.
We maybe before I move on to the next Kyudo gathering, what we intend is that the Kyudo gathering is like a platform for us to exchange between the different Kyudo nations. So we also since we also have a technical lead like Goka Sensei, and then Kodama-san is also one of the senior in Singapore. So we actually have an exchange in the sense that Goka Sensei can take turn to like teach, and then also Penang there is also Nimura Sensei. Nimura Sensei was also a sandan in Penang, so we exchanged the knowledge. And as I did not mention this one, actually Goka Sensei, he teach us a very specific Kyudo style. We call it the Hekiryu Insaiha. It's based on the Kyujutsu style, and he is a student of Tokuyama Sensei, which is the clan leader of the Okayama clan, which is the Hekitoryu. The Hekitoryu has about like 400 years of history. They are the one which is the official Kyujutsu style for the Tokugawa shogunate. So their family is actually quite well known in the Kyujutsu world.
Very cool.
So we got this special opportunity to learn this specific art from Goka Sensei. Yeah. So about Southeast Asia Kyudo. So we tend the initial objective is we have a gathering between different nations to build up the relationship, and of course when we start to create association, national association, we try to also form a bridge with the International Kyudo Federation. So when Brandon was the president, we did a reporting every year to them, what are our activities, what we have done, all this stuff. So eventually our objective is to become part of the member nation of the IKYF. So just like the Kendo and Judo and Aikido, we have a national recognized organization, and that was our very first objective. Along the way, of course, there are other developments, but until now, we still are pursuing this approach to be part of the member. So far, Southeast Asia, none of the countries are part of the member nations. In Asia, it's only Taiwan, of course, Japan, Taiwan, and Hong Kong. Three countries are part of the member nations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So after KL, we have our second Southeast Asia Kyudo gathering. This is in Singapore. I believe Hong Bo did show this before. He did share this.
I recognize a few faces there from Hong Kong and from Singapore.
Correct. Then the third one we have in Bangkok. That was in 2016 was in Singapore, 2015 is in Malaysia, the first one, and the third one is 2017. This is in Bangkok. As you can see, it's a very big group. And we also have people from Europe join us.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And then the fourth one is in 2019. 2018, we tried to have it in Vietnam, Hanoi. Unfortunately, there are some political issues. I think it's more like government policy that we can't actually have it in Hanoi.
What is this sash that you're wearing in that previous picture? What's that sash that you have?
Okay. Yes. During the Southeast Asia Kyudo gathering, we also try to organize some competition between countries. We nowadays we try to standardize like individual competition. Individual competition, we can have participation from people outside of Southeast Asia. Just for example, the Hong Kong from Hong Kong or from Europe. Everyone can participate, and then we also have a group competition. Group competition, we try to like we try to only open for the Southeast Asia countries. So this was once this was done in 2019, and that time I think we are lucky we won we won the group competition. Vietnam I think they got second. Yeah, that's how Southeast Asia Kyudo started. So a bit of our organization, right? Goka Sensei is a Hekiryu, as I mentioned just now. Then along the way, we have we also have the honor of having Saito Sensei. This is Saito Sensei, and then also Saito Sensei is a fifth dan. Currently, he joined as a fifth dan, and then now he's a Renshi sixth dan. Then we also have a Yuka Nasu Senpai. So all of these Japanese expatriates who is in Malaysia has been contributing a lot to our development. Yeah. And of course, I think what inspired me is also Saito Sensei has been very inspiring. He is also one of the very, I would say, genius, very talented, the most talented Kyudoka I have ever met. He reached like, why I say that is because he reached like fifth dan during his university time, and he stopped like 20 years. Yeah, 20 years. You can imagine 20 years without Kyudo.
Yeah.
And actually, it's also a very special connection between me and him. Because is that when I work as a consultant, I work in the IT consultant, as an IT consultant in one of the local car manufacturing company. He was actually the boss of my client. So my client actually reports to him. I know him. I never speak to him, but I always see him in the corner of the. I'm not sure if you have worked in a Japanese company before. Usually the boss will sit at the corner, and they are facing the staff. So if you're browsing Google or something or Facebook, they basically can see what you're doing. So it's a very typical Japanese kind of company sitting arrangement. I always see him sitting there, and I always work with my client. And during that time, I did not know he is part of the Kyudoka, and somehow there is this Japanese language kind of study group where Jim is my junior. He was also part of the president after I left. So Jim and Saito Sensei's wife was in this Japanese cultural or language kind of exchange, and Jim told his wife that there's a Kyudo club, and then eventually Saito Sensei also got interested, and he came, and that's when he restarted after 20 years.
Oh, so he was doing it in Japan, and then
he was doing in Japan and stopped for 20 years during his professional life. I think he don't have the time for Kyudo. Then when he met us, that also inspires him to restart back Kyudo after 20 years. It was actually amazing. In some of the Shinsa, people like take a few tries and still can't get a rank, right? Saito Sensei actually got his 6th dan in like 2 years.
After restarting?
Yes. Wow. 2 years. And he got his Renshi. Renshi was like the title, yeah. I guess you know what's Renshi. So he got it like the 1 year plus. And after that, after 6 months, he attempted the 6 dan exam and he passed. So he is very talented. I have never seen such a talented person before in my life.
So how long was he in Malaysia for? Or is he still there?
He was here for like 3-4 years. Yeah, about 4 years. But during that time, there was still no Kyudo.
Oh, okay. So
but
he
now he
restarted
has.
and then he moved
Sorry.
back to Japan. So he
Yeah.
restarted in Malaysia and then he moved back to Japan and continued.
Yes, he continued in Japan, in Osaka. So currently, our club there's no senior Japanese. Yuka Senpai is also she has left Malaysia back to Japan.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is very much about us. So a bit about also for me, I specialize in Hekiryu in Saiha, as you know. That is the shaman style, which is based on the Kyujutsu. So during that time, I still remember during our very first Shodan exam, in Malaysia, it's only, the whole group, about 100 people, only 5 of us are shaman, plus another girl from Shokan University, that is from the Tokuyama dojo. So 5 of us are only the one that does shaman. And outside of Japan, Malaysia is also the first group which we do shaman. The rest of the countries mostly showman. And of course, in Penang, Lim San, he is also doing showman. So in a way, actually, I would say it's quite challenging to be part of the when you use shaman in the modern Kyudo world. Whereas the majority of people are using showman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Why do I say that? Is that because we also part of the Kyujutsu, so we actually have to practice Kyujutsu style. We have our own Tai format, the ceremonial format, and then we also, if we want to pursue a Dan ranking, we need to also learn the IKYF, ANKF Tai, which is based on Ogasawara Ryu. So in a way, Hekiryu is also give us we see things differently because we see it from the traditional aspect and as well as the modern Do aspect. And the concept is also very different because in the Hekiryu, we focus on the Kanchukyu. Kanchukyu means we have to hit hard, and always hit. Whereas in the modern Kyudo, is Shinzen-bi, right?
Mm-hmm.
Truth, goodness, and beauty. But in a way, these two concepts can be seen as conflicting because one is about hitting, technique. Kyujutsu is about technique. While modern Do, as you know, is more about your form, your ethics, how you bring up yourself, and through Budo, you improve upon yourself, right? But along the way, I met with different sensei. Hoff sensei, I think you have interviewed him as well. Hoff sensei is also a very inspiring person. He inspired me a lot. I did pose this question to him. I mentioned how can we actually integrate these two concepts together? What he answered me is actually, it makes sense and it's very interesting. Is that when you have Shinzen-bi, in the modern aspect, you focus on Shinzen-bi and you master this, eventually you will have Kanchukyu. Because modern Kyudo believes that if you have a proper form and a proper technique, you eventually hit. And to hit, always hit, of course. And of course, with a proper technique, you can transfer more energy to the arrow and you hit hard. So these two concepts are actually relevant.
Yeah. It's just like everything else. Like I like to think about this as balance in any Budo art too. It's or like life, because sometimes you have to think long term, sometimes you have to think short term. You can't just do one or the other. Like if you just think short term, then you won't have plans, you won't be ready, you won't be educated, you won't build up relationships or whatever, and just think about winning now. But then if you just think about in the future, you keep building, then there's no point in the modern day. So it's just like going to the Olympics. Yeah, I can keep training so that I win now, or I can train so that I'm just improving to win like 4 years down the line. Yeah, it's a very interesting concept that we always have to balance, and it's very hard, I can see.
Yes, that is true. Talking about balance, it's also very challenging in the sense that, as you know, in Japan, most of the archers are showman based. There are a small percentage, maybe 20% of shaman in some prefecture. Nagoya, we can see more senseis are doing the shaman style. And in Hekiru inside especially, Hanshi level, we have the last Hanshi, which is Hiroko Urakami. So basically, after she passed away in 2018, there's no more Hanshi. In a way, this art, there's a representation in the international Kyudo. Yeah, is that maybe some of the sensei does not really understand what we are doing. So we get a lot of correction sometimes. Because Hekiru also have Kyujutsu aspects. So in a Kyujutsu way of shooting, it can be different. It can be very different somehow. But I will say, based on my understanding, Kyujutsu is actually a practical art. Practical in the sense that we can adjust according to the shooting condition. For instance, IKYF have a fixed standard. Yeah. In ANKF or All Nippon Kyudo Federation, there is no schools. There is two styles. They accept showman and shaman. Shaman can be different. Traditionally, it can be from different schools, and the Hekiru have different branches. So we are from the inside but they follow a very specific fundamental. As long as you fit into this fundamental, then this is considered okay, right? But some of the Kyujutsu people, they practice Kyujutsu style, and they break somehow. They are not in line with this modern Kyudo standard. That is actually a very big challenge. So in order for someone like us to adapt to it, we need to know, first thing, we need to be very clear of what is Kyujutsu and what is Kyudo. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Shinzenbi and Kanchukyu. And we need to also adjust the technique accordingly. Because sometimes we have, just give you an example, we also have a small release. We also have a bigger release. So for some beginners who does this small release, which is acceptable in Kyujutsu, because Kyujutsu, we have this small release for shorter distance shooting. And we have a big release for a further distance shooting. But in the modern Kyudo, if a beginner does this small release, it is not so nice because you need to see the cross. Yeah, after the Zanshin, the cross, you have to have a very nice cross. And also another aspect, just an example, is like in Kyujutsu, we tilt the bow slight 5 degrees to clockwise, and also we twist with the right hand, the hinari. This is to increase the power. But from my understanding, Kyudo, you need to have the bow straight up. You can't have the bow too tilt to the right side. And these are actually a real challenge that we need to understand and differentiate.
Yeah, I think from what I'm hearing about you too, because, well, I guess you work in consulting, there's that there's best practices. So IT, if you set it up this way, if you do it this way, then that's like a good way. But then when you talk to a client, each client might have a different opinion of how things should be. And you have to be able to adapt to that because they're paying for your services. So I guess similarly with the IKYF, they have their way. You might have a different way, but you're able to adapt to them because you're going to them for grades and for the community. So it's very, I'm always looking for these connections between everyday life, like what you do in your job, how you interact with other people, with what you can learn in Budo and bring it to each other that way. So yeah,
yes,
I can see how important it is to adapt.
Yes, there's also, I would say, sometimes in Budo, we don't see this only in Kyudo. That in Judo, Aikido is probably a lot of politics. You can't run away from politics. People have different opinion and different school of thoughts. From my this 8 years experience, I would say I seen some politics. Some people might think, hey, Kyujutsu, what you guys are doing, Kyujutsu is not really Kyudo, yeah. so like just now the point that I bring is that we need to really understand what is Kyudo and Kyujutsu, so we can't like mix things up. But I would say Kyujutsu can be adapted into Kyudo. This is also very a point that we need to understand, because Kyujutsu traditionally they do not have a standard. Of course, each school have their own standard of way of teaching and the way of doing things. But Kyudo is the unity of these traditional schools. It started off with judo during Jigoro Kano as the founder. He started with this do concept because he started as he's an educator. So the do concept is basically education, and in order to achieve the education, we need to have a standardized format. Every person agrees to this format. You do this, and we have a standard uniform. Everyone wears the same uniform, and we also have a grading standards. These are all part of the do. Traditionally, Kyujutsu, we have scrolls. Yeah, we don't have like a grading, but of course, the sensei feels that the student has reached a certain level. They give them the scrolls. Like makimono, we call that makimono. In Hekiru, we have this mokuroku, which is the basic one. Then the do concept eventually become a trend. Yeah, just like judo, all the masters meet up. All the traditional schools masters meet up. They agree with a certain standards. During the Dai Nippon Budokukai, all the masters meet up to create this standard called do. And we have judo, and then we have Kyudo. And for Kyudo, it is very interesting because different traditional schools have their own style of ceremonial. For example, Hekiru, we have our own, and modern Kyudo is based on Ogasawara ryu. So they adopted this ceremonial form as the standard, and also the techniques. They accept showman and shaman. This is to accommodate different schools, as you know. Yeah. So in a way, the inception during the inception of Kyudo, the ANKF style is that you must do Ogasawara ryu Taihai, but the shooting form it is based on your traditional school. You can have your own Honda Ryu Showman or your Ogasawara Ryu Showman, but as long as you stick to the principle, that is okay. And that same principle goes back to Hekiru. We can have our own styles to shoot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I always find it fun to compare because my main Budo is Iaido, so I've been doing that for 17 years. And we're part of the Kendo Federation. And for Kendo Federation, your etiquette could be your traditional school, but the form has to be the standard. So it's like the other way, which makes sense too, because there are a lot more different kata in Iaido than Kyudo. There's just pretty much one shooting.
Yes. For me, I have to learn both.
Oh, you
the
do too.
Hekiryu.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
we have to learn both
Yeah.
ceremonial form.
Yeah. We see it's very familiar to us in Iaido because we do have our traditional form, our Koryu, and then we have the standard from the All Japan Kendo Federation. And you can see the difference. There's some people that stick to just the standard. So in Kyudo, I guess they stick to Ogasawara Ryu. There's no Kyujutsu in there. It's just thinking about the Kyudo way. And then there's others in Iaido where we focus on the Koryu, where we do the traditional kind of more combative, more feeling of a real scenario. And in this case, it would be, I guess, your Kyujutsu. And it's always going to be tough balancing this. But like those of us that think about it, like you were saying from Felix Hoff Sensei, they can reinforce each other. Doing one will help the other one. Just like I'm realizing now, doing Kendo will help Iaido. Doing more combative forms, more Jutsu will help your Do, and your Do can help your Jutsu. It's just, they all come from pretty much the same source. It's all about how the human body moves and thinks and feels.
Yes, talking about that, right? Of course, you can learn everything in Kyudo. You do not need Kyujutsu to learn Kyudo, right? But if you wanted to really go in depth, back to the roots, you have to study the Kyujutsu. Mm-hmm. That is the essence of where all these Kyudo arts come from, yeah? Because Kyujutsu comes before Kyudo. And of course, the Do is now the standard. If you want a rank, you have to fulfill all these requirements. Yeah, the Kyujutsu does not give any more scrolls, especially in inside heart. They do not give any more scrolls. So I would say that is if you wanted to really go in depth, try to study Kyujutsu. And talking about Kendo, I've seen some Koryu Kendo, which they trip the leg. There's a leg sweeps.
Yeah.
It's very competitive. I see the linkage between the Kendo, Koryu, and also Kyujutsu Koryu. Of course, Kyujutsu, we also have the battlefield. Have you seen the Koshiya, where they dress in samurai armor, and then they shoot like 20 arrows, rapid shooting, and then they charge in. And in the old days, they have a spear on the bow. They can use the Yumi as a spear, and they charge in all those stuff. But you do not see those things in modern Do. I think even Kendo has already like removed most of these aspects. Mm-hmm. There's no more leg sweeps, right?
Yeah. So this is a very interesting conversation. I think that we need to hear more of this because most people are familiar with one or the other. And when you have experience and when you can talk about it, it's great to show there is this difference and you can learn one, you can learn the other, you can learn both, but it will exist. The more you practice, you will find people from the other that do the other one or focus on the other one. And it's important that we can have a friendly conversation about what are the differences, what we enjoy about it, and then still work together. So thank you for sharing this background.
Yes, and in Kyudo is actually a very niche art. Not many people doing it compared to other arts like Judo, for example. I think even Kendo has more members. To get someone really started in Kyudo or interested in it is also very different. For example, our members, most of them contacted us about Kyudo is due to mostly they are otaku. Those who are interested in Japanese culture, anime. There was a recent anime that people get interested, right? But we see very seldom people who are interested in archery that joins Kyudo. That is a trend that I found. But of course, there is some minority people who are interested in archery and also interested in Kyudo, but just like Lim from Penang, he's a modern recurve, and I think he shoots all bows. So in a way, actually, Kyudo is very niche art, and there is also a different there's also political view, whereby you feel like you do not belong to Kyudo because you are Kyujutsu, or you are doing the Zen Kyudo. Have you seen the Zen Kyudo doing the meditation? There is some religious perspective into that. But what I feel is that this is a very niche art. We should actually we should not have a stereotype whereby we see things, you and me, we are different, right? What I'm doing is the real thing, and what you are doing is the wrong thing. We should actually celebrate diversity, since it's actually a very niche art. As long as it is part of the Japanese archery tradition, I think that is we able to like coexist.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. That sounds like a great closing, but is there anything else that you want to say just to wrap this up? Anything you want to say to others, or yeah?
Actually, my last sentence just now is my wrapping up point is that we should celebrate diversity instead of separating between you and me. So we should work together. And lastly, of course, enjoy Kyudo.
Absolutely. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Chris. This has been great. Hope we can stay connected.
Thank you very much, Patrick, for your time. Okay.
We'll talk to you again sometime soon. Bye.
Yeah. Bye. Take care.
Thank you.